The Taiwan Universiade was held at Taipei on August 19th. Mainland athletes participated individually rather than in the name of the national team, while the national flag was flying during the opening ceremony. What are the implications for both sides on these issues? Wu Den-yih took office as the new chairman of the Kuomintang, the biggest opposition party in Taiwan. What will the new leader do for the KMT, and how will the party shape Taiwan politics in the future? Since the DPP came to power, several countries have severed relations with Taiwan, and the volume of Chinese mainland visitors to Taiwan has shrunk dramatically this year. Will these events push Tsai Ing-wen towards a more positive response to the 1992 consensus, or the other way? The National Defense Authorization Act for 2018, passed on July 14th, requires the U.S. Secretary of Defense to study the feasibility of re-establishing regular ports of call for the U.S. Navy at ports in Taiwan and normalizing the transfer of defense equipment and services to the island. How will this change the U.S. relations with Taiwan in practice?
Protests over pensions reform in Taiwan have blocked the 2017 Taipei Universiade, an international university sports event, reflecting a heated debate over policy shifts by the ruling party. In the same week, a massive power outage took place in Taiwan, costing the economy millions of dollars and exposing challenges for the ruling party to overcome. Meanwhile, the Kuomintang has a new chairman, with Wu Den-yih taking over at a time when the party is seeking to revitalize its support in an effort to successfully challenge the DPP. What is the nature of the problems now facing Taiwan? And how will attempts at solving them influence cross-strait relations, which are currently beset by tensions between Beijing and Taipei? To discuss the many issues related to Taiwan, I'm in the studio by Zhong Hotel, research fellow with the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and Gregory Yin-Tang, current affairs commentator. We shall also talk to Joanna Lei Chen, former Taiwan legislator, through satellite. That's our topic. This is a dialogue. I'm Yang Ray. Welcome to our studio discussion here. How do you assess the consequences arising from the protests that almost blocked the entrance of the ceremony of, the 2017 Universiade in Taipei? Who are those protesters?
These protesters are the retirees in Taiwan from government posts, military services, and teaching positions. They are against the practice enforced by Tsai Ing-wen's administration to reduce the pension privilege and so on, to destabilize the retirement lifestyle. So they felt this is the time to make the voice heard. So they had a demonstration to block the entrance of the participants of the event. However, this action is approved by the Taipei government in the first place. And I think the action that taken did not create such a disruption at all. So everything went on smoothly, so it's not such a big deal from my point of view.
No big deal for the opening ceremony, but it is a big deal for perhaps those who follow the democratic development in Taiwan, because, although most of the mainland observers respect the democracy, they are really concerned about the chaos. And this chaos seems to have been reinforced by the recent power outage. What do you think of our concerns?
Our concern is about the democratic development in Taiwan. I mean, the Taiwan independence, those forces development in Taiwan, that is just like friends. One is democratic development, another is Taiwan independence development. So we are really very concerned about the latter one. So I think, as what you said about the power outage, I think that is not an incident. It is actually the shortage of power supply has been a long problem in Taiwan for about at least 10 years. But Tsai Ing-wen refused to realize this problem. She before election, she just claimed for time and again that she would try to do anything to keep this power supply, but actually she failed.
The two sides across the Taiwan Strait, Gregory, used to quarrel over what kind of a name the Taipei delegation should use so that the principle of the mainland for reunification would not be undermined. What's the name of the Taiwan delegation? I mean, they of course would perform in their own city, in their own island. They are the host. But why did the mainland authorities insist that the participants that we sent there would get involved individually instead of in the name of the mainland?
It started 40 years ago in 1976 when the Olympic Games was conducted in Canada. As you know, PRC admitted to the United Nations 4 years earlier. So the instruction coming from the host country is that if Taiwan going to participate in this Olympic Games in Canada, they cannot use, first of all, the name of Republic of China. They cannot wave the flags. So Taiwan, under protest, withdrew from that competition. Later, there's a compromise struck to allow Taiwan to participate in international athletic events under the name of Chinese Taipei. The flag they're using is not the national flag used in Taiwan traditionally, but a design particularly for these purposes. So this time, of course, there is a compromise also from the mainland side. The mainland decided to support this activity by sending delegates, athletes to participate in events. However, it's not under a national group. So they did have the five-star flags patrolled, marched in the stadium, but there's no one following the flag. So it's a compromise. Basically satisfy the needs on both parties.
And Ho Tao, do you believe this is a deliberate attempt to make a compromise so that the host city of Taipei would not be embarrassed?
Yes, I think it is a kind of a compromise. Actually, I think the Chinese mainland has already showed its greatest goodwillness. For example, as you know, the Universiade in Taipei, actually the timing of the Universiade is overlapping with the Chinese mainland national sports meeting in Tianjin. So still, Chinese mainland sent a group for about 100 athletes. That is, Chinese mainland just want to make a great contribution for the Taipei Universiade. Another point, as just Mr. Zhang said, for this time, those audience in Taipei, in Taiwan, would have a chance to wave the so-called national flag, just for audience, not for athletes. So I think this has never happened before. I think this is also a good sign of goodwillness.
Do you believe our friendly gesture from the mainland serves to support the KMT, currently the opposition party, and we're going to give Wu Den-yih a chance to make a political comeback 2 years from now? Do you believe this is the message that the mainland delivered?
Well, I think the position taken by China to participate in the games is an overall approach. It's not geared just to KMT or something to support, not to support DPP, because in the long run, it's essential that Taiwan, no matter who's in charge at the top, has to develop a harmonious and positive relations with mainland China to benefit people on both sides of the Taiwan Straits. So this time, I think mainland China has taken the right steps to support the activities with some limited support to some extent. Again, I mentioned this. I think with this thousands of visitors went to Taiwan to see this event, at the same time, they have a chance to see Taiwan as a whole. I do think Taiwan has something to present in terms of its social orders, its democratic practices, and its tradition, respect, and so on. So it's a gain for Taiwan in the long run and as a whole.
Let me go to Joanna Lei Chen for her comment on the latest takeover by Wu Den-yih as chairman of KMT. Hello, Joanna. What do you think of the power transfer between Hong Xiuzhu and Wu Den-yih? Do you believe the friendly gesture of the mainland to support the Universiade in Taipei would also serve to show up the morale of the KMT, which suffered a major devastating setback in the election?
Well, as any democratic party, the power transfer has to be peaceful and without any glitches, and that's why KMT has demonstrated. However, it is very clear to everybody in terms of observing the differences between Hong Xiuzhu and Wu Den-yih. Wu Den-yih's initial speeches, his first couple of speeches, maintained a position following Ma Ying-jeou's 3 no's, which is a sharp departure from what Hong Xiuzhu has tried to advance. Hong Xiuzhu has tried to move towards a peace accord. She's tried to move forward towards a clearer definition of one China and Taiwan's position within it. And Wu Den-yih started from a departure from that, but in his final speech, when he assumed power, he actually said he will be opposing Taiwan independence, which to me is a very clear gesture trying to bridge the differences between Ma Ying-jeou's 3 no's, which is very clearly defining the 8 years of Ma Ying-jeou and Hong Xiuzhu's position. With that, we hope that Wu Den-yih will be able to rebuild a closer or more smooth relationship with KMT and also with mainland China.
Thank you so much. Gregory, what do you think of the position of Wu Den-yih in his inaugural speech on the cross-strait relations?
Let me say this. I think Wu Den-yih has made a very balanced and calculated speech to hopefully satisfy the needs of all parties involved. For example, not to gain the support of Taiwan voters. Hopefully next year's local election and 2 years from now, the general election would have enough support to hopefully to stimulate the enthusiasm of voters to vote for KMT. On the other hand, he has also to consider the red line of mainland China. He did not mention specifically about unification this time, okay? And therefore, there's simply an open agenda. But he stood clear against Taipei independence, mentioned this 1992 consensus, and that by itself is sufficient. So he did not mention peace accord. Okay, so leaves that open. And he emphasized the necessity of mainland China and Taiwan both have to work hard to improve their relations and exchange program and so on. That is a necessity to state where he stands. So he has a gigantic task facing the challenge from DPP, election coming up, and the consolidation of the party itself, attracting new blood into the party. So he has a great task. It's a great challenge, but it's a very heavy and a difficult one for him to accomplish.
Ho Tao, which concern of the mainland is more important at the moment? Our support for the success of KMT to make a political comeback 2 years from now, or expecting Tsai Ing-wen to finish the other half of the examination paper on the cross-strait relationship?
I think as for Chinese mainland, it is much more important for KMT to return to power. As KMT is our old friends, we have been working, we have been cooperating for a long time. As Mr. Zhang said, Wu Den-yih, I think, is the best guy for KMT to lead KMT to return to power, as he is the most experienced one in KMT, and he is, once he once served as the premier, even as the so-called vice president of Taiwan. So he is most experienced. And another point, he could reunify the high level of KMT. I think Wu Den-yih would lead KMT to be much better than now. And I think in the next local election, I mean in 2018 election, local election, not in one election, KMT maybe would have a good chance to succeed. If KMT could succeed in local election, maybe in 2020, KMT would have a good chance to win in the so-called presidential election.
Joanna, what's the chance of KMT to take back most of the seats in the upcoming local elections, given the current low approval rating of Tsai Ing-wen?
Well, certainly Tsai Ing-wen has made some strategic errors, and she tried to use the new proactive budget to compensate for it. Wu Den-yih has a fair chance in terms of regaining some of the Pan-Blue support. If we look very carefully between 2012 and 2016, KMT lost 3 million voters in the general election, while DPP only gained 800. So in that 800,000. So in that sense, if KMT can rekindle its relationship with those disenfranchised voters, then there is a fair chance for KMT to regain certain grounds in the 2018 election. And that certainly is the #1 task for Wu Den-yih and his team.
Fundamentally, I believe, Gregory, it is the economic issue that will decide who can smile at the end of the journey. What's the chance of a DPP, a pan-green party, the pro-secession party?
Well, I would say the practice and policy adopted by Tsai Ing-wen at this time is in the wrong direction. First of all, she's strongly against 1992 consensus. Therefore, did not give mainland China any incentive or any support at all to continue its friendly approach with Taiwan on this side of the Taiwan Strait. Secondly, she has taken many actions to offend the voters in Taiwan, with his approval rate down to the bottom. So his practice, for example, to try to crush KMT financially or otherwise, is against the democratic practice in Taiwan, because to Taiwan itself it's essential and healthy to have a two-party system existing. Therefore, the voters will have a choice. I think if 4 years from now, for example, 3 years from now, if the economy in Taiwan is down the drain, China is in big trouble, international support is not there, and then I think chances are she'll be replaced by KMT. So she has to know that she is making wrong moves at this point. It's not too late to correct those mistakes. I hope she can take the right action from now on. Hopefully that is true.
You are watching Dialogue with Gregory Yin Zhang and Dr. Zhong Ho-Tao. We are also talking to Joanna Lei Chen, former legislator of Taiwan. We're discussing why there has been the power outage and whether the KMT, the current biggest opposition party in Taiwan, will be able to return to the center stage of power in the island of Taiwan. We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. What do you think of the proactive stimulus plan, Hotel, that will cost Taiwan 880 billion new Taiwan dollars, 29 billion US dollars, to be spread over 8 years?
I think Tsai Ing-wen just want to attract more voters, just want to get more voting, more support, as her satisfying or approving rate has been decreasing dramatically. So maybe this is the only way for her to regain her support. But I think it is doomed to fail, since the long-term project, it will not be realized in a short term. So her approving rate would not increase dramatically in a short time.
I agree with Mr. Zong that the money spending under the plan of administration, Tsai administration, is to actually to get money to the hands of the mayors and the counties now under DPP control. Therefore, to enhance the chances of success in the next election and 2 years from now. So those money are not spent in the right spot. For example, buying weapons from the United States, buying advanced firefighters. Taiwan needs all the money for domestic improvement, talking about more money to the retirees, for example, to improve the economic situation and social stability, instead of buying weapons, instead of trying to get money to DPP supporters. I think voters in Taiwan have enough intelligence and wisdom to know this practice is in the wrong direction.
Now, when China is so highly expected by Washington to diffuse the tensions in the DPRK, do you think the Pentagon will honor the legislation by the U.S. Congress, for example, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2018, to facilitate port calls by the U.S. Navy? And that would of course anger the mainland.
Yeah, yes, I don't think the White House or Pentagon would agree the so-called legislation about National Defense Act would be approved. First, it should be approved by both Senate and the House, and then it should be signed by the President Donald Trump. And it should be realized or instructed. I don't think those procedures would be realized. Another point is that it would anger Chinese mainland, since if the United States send its vessel to Taiwan or Kaohsiung or some other harbor, then it means the Taiwan send their military forces to Taiwan, and actually that break the three principles that established in 1979. I mean, when Chinese mainland or PRC set its diplomatic relationship with the United States. So that would a great signal for Chinese mainland. So if the United States really send its vessel to Taiwan, I think the Chinese mainland would not support United States on DPRK issue.
I'd like to know local media response towards military moves by the mainland recently. For example, since 2013, Joanna, China's aircraft carrier Liaoning has passed through the Taiwan Strait several times. And not only that, H-6 strategic bombers and other warplanes have also flown close to Taiwan's air defense identification zone. These military gestures from the mainland may allegedly have provoked the Taiwan authorities. Is that true? What is the local media response?
Well, let me add a third one. Most recently, the KJ-200 has flown over Taiwan. I think there are two major schools of thoughts in Taiwan. The first one said, okay, this is a new normal. Mainland China has greater airline and sea forces, and they're trying to break the first chain through the blockade of the United States and Japan. So this will be the new normal that we're expected to live with. And it also is an opportunity for Taiwan to practice all the protocols concerning the air defense identification zone, the ADIZ protocols. That's one school of thought. The other one says, well, these are intended to threaten Taiwan, to give Taiwan a new taste of the new arm, the strong-armed methods by mainland China. And of course, you would understand, local media depends on its own ideology, will pick one of the two. If you are pro-Taiwan independent, then you would say this is mainland China trying to threaten Taiwan and Taiwan people. If you are more neutral, or in terms of international perspective, then you would say this may have a direct impact to Taiwan, but also it's sending a strong message to the United States and Japan, which are building greater forces in the Asia-Pacific.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Do you think Tsai Ing-wen is still that naive to take the presidency of Donald Trump and his words very seriously?
I don't think Tsai Ing-wen's plan to depend either on the United States or Japan to back it up and then to go independent is a viable option at all, because the United States and China have so many common with international affairs. So as a businessman background for Donald Trump, he would not risk the fundamental interest of the United States by confronting China to back Taiwan up. That is not a good calculation at all. So I don't think in the long run the United States would support, for example, by the White House, to have warships to visit Taiwan port at all. That is just a gesture, but it's not become reality. So I don't believe anything would go wrong to the point of having a direct confrontation between the United States and China. So Tsai Ing-wen has to know the best thing to be done by Taiwan is to strengthen its position, build up social stability, economic development, have good connections with mainland China. At the same time, for mainland China to add more attraction, more persuasion to Taiwan, China has to make its own internal affairs to become better. For example, political reform and other things to make sure the total environment is conducive for the people in China to realize the Chinese dreams.
Well, Mr. Xi Jinping has been portrayed by Western media as the strongest since the years of Mao Zedong. And do you think, as a result, he's likely to follow suit of Deng Xiaoping, who vowed to liberate Taiwan as one of the major tasks in the 1980s? Jiang Zemin even put forward the white paper saying the question of Taiwan should not be postponed indefinitely. And therefore, do you think, given the current military balance, which tips quite in favor of mainland, Xi Jinping stands ready to take Taiwan back, hopefully in a peaceful manner?
Yes, I think President Xi is quite ambitious enough to resolve Taiwan issue. Actually, last year, President Xi has already said Taiwan issue could not be postponed one generation to another generation. That means maybe in his term, maybe in next term, or in some time later, Taiwan issue would be resolved in two manners. First, maybe in just as you said, in peaceful manner. Another maybe by use of force. That depends on what kind of attitude the Taiwan authority will take. Maybe as for Chinese mainland, it's better to use a peaceful manner. But if the final situation has already changed, for example, the Taiwan pronounced or claimed Taiwan independence, maybe the Chinese mainland has to be compelled to use force.
Many observers who follow the relationship across the Taipei Strait noticed that recently 3 student leaders were sentenced to 8 months of imprisonment for their role in organizing the Occupy Central movement in Hong Kong. Now, the mind and heart of the younger generation in both Hong Kong and Taiwan would mean a lot for the future of the two territories. Even if we can take back Taiwan, the governance or effective governance of Taiwan would remain a big issue. So what happens in Hong Kong may send a spillover message to Taiwan. Do you think the Taiwan authorities, including opposition party of the KMT, have all taken these things into consideration and try to figure out what the future of Taiwan would be like?
Of course, the recent event happened in Hong Kong was Occupy Central, and also the Sunflower Movement in Taiwan indicated that the youth, both in Taiwan and Hong Kong, were concerned about the future. They are concerned about what's going to happen next. So the best thing can be done, I think, by mainland China and Taiwan is to strengthen their cooperation, to make both environment inducive and supportive to realize the dreams, be able to have a good future and so on. So this task is very, very challenging. So I don't think, don't think mainland China or Taiwan will ignore the targets. And unification of China is a matter of time. I don't believe military means is the solution, because by doing that...
Excuse me, you said unification is just a matter of time.
Correct, but not by military means.
Do you agree?
Yes, I think reunification is just a matter of time. Actually, the deadline, I think, should be 2049. That is our bottom line.
Well, thank you so much. 2049, well, that will be the 100th anniversary of the founding of the PRC. We're going to see whether a big China dream will come true. With that, we come to the end of this edition of Dialogue. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.